Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. We are a day and a half out from the opening of the Conclave 2025, which begins on May the 7th, 2025, which makes it Cinco de Mayo today, Monday. And with me to give a little analysis, because there's tons and tons of rumors and gossip, is Anthony Abbate from Avoiding Babylon. How are you doing, man?
What's going on, brother?
Not much. How the hell are you?
Oh, man. I don't know. I bounce between like black pilling and hope back and forth every day. It's kind of like a new
What's up with that? What's making you hope? That's the odd part. The black pilling's normal to me, but what's making you hope? Whatever could be given.
When I look at the human element, it's complete doom. Like I'm just like we're screwed. There's no hope at all. But I don't know. I always want to leave room for God to work some kind of a miracle. So that's like, it is the church. So
leave room for the Holy Spirit, the way you like they would tell you when you're dancing with your middle school girlfriend. I mean, yeah. But that's not, of course, you and I had this long talk a couple days ago. The politicking is all human. The church is composite, divine, and human, but the politics, which is what gets popes elected, is all human. Yeah. So we know, we'll cover this story. Cardinal Casper was out there today saying the conservatives are a very small voting bloc. We're not going back away from the Francis agenda. I've talked to lots of cardinal. I'll read the exact thing. But that's not news to me. That doesn't shock me or disappoint me, because I know that's how it works. That I know how court packing works, and so do you, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with it. I've seen enough of these things go down now at this point.
I'll tell you what. I talked to Kev Pasovic, Jack Pasovic's brother, on the phone a couple nights ago, and he's just asking me some Rome logistics and some conclave logistics. And I was looking at kind of to just help him, where would be the best place to get a shot from, because he and Jack are going to Rome for this thing, I guess tomorrow. And I was like, this is kind of retarded. I'm not going. I was looking in Trastevere, which is the best place to get a shot kind of opening onto Rome. It's west of the Tiber, south of Vatican City. And we were looking at hotel rooms, and it's totally inexpensive. I'm like, I should be going out there. The only reason I'm not is because I hate traveling without the fam. Yeah. We have an RV because I'm John Madden. I don't like flying, and I never like traveling without the fam. But I'm like, I should really go out there. Did you consider going out there for this?
I really can't. I still have like a day job, but I would have loved to be there. But I feel like everybody's doing that, right? Like everybody's just hopping to Rome, and it's like the way news is delivered these days. You find things out on this, but you find out quicker on Twitter than you would if you were in person there anyway. So I mean, yeah, what are you going to be? Just one more. The good thing about going to something like that is that you get to like mingle with everybody, and you make contacts, and it's the same thing with conferences. Like I go to conferences, I can't stand listening to the talks, but I love hanging out with everybody after and sitting at the bar till 1 a.m. and just chewing people's ears off,
For sure. Yeah. I'll say this. Who's going over there that I don't know. I know.
So George Farmer saying he was going to go, right? I mean, it seems like everybody's hopping a plane over to Rome because everybody wants to be the on-site reporter these days. It's like,
well, George is going to do a man on the street for me. We're gonna do a stream. So I was going to meet him over there and hang out, but I just, at the end of the day, I end up sort of saying no thanks. And so he's going to do a man on the street. We're going to stream live. Kev Pasovic and maybe Jack will maybe join me live too. So I have some of that, but really it's mainly just about the shot. Like when you watched Raymond Arroyo's World Over on Thursday night 4 days ago, it's just awesome because he had the best setup in the world right above St. Peter's, and it looks beautiful. And there's something to Dasein, this German concept of being there. Yeah. It's unique to human experience, human phenomenology, whatever. So
especially because everything's so online these days, like to actually be there and see the white smoke when it comes out, it's got to be such a rush.
I know, it's got to be sick. I mean, it's world historical, and if something interesting actually happened, and by that I don't just mean getting some new, center left pope, which is what we're going to get, maybe far left pope, but center left to left pope, which is all that's going to happen. If something big happened, the kind of thing that Anthony Abbate, Timothy J. Gordon want to see, then can you imagine being live on the ground? I also know that city better than I know any American city. I know it like I'm a native Los Angelino. Los Angeles is a country, you know? I mean, it's practically a state. Rome's a little city, and I know, especially east of the Tiber, but west of the Tiber too, I would love to be there if Cardinal Burke actually got everyone together and did something world historical. It'd be dope to be there.
Do you, man, because I saw 1 Peter 5 tweeted out that there was cardinals meeting at his apartment. Like this is what I was talking about the other day. Like we've lived through one of the wildest presidential elections in 2020. We saw like the presidency essentially, robbed. Then we watched Trump, an assassination attempt on him. Like we all have this normalcy bias, but if you went back to like 2015 and told people some of the things we would live through in the next 7-8 years, you'd think that person was crazy for saying it. So the things that you're saying at first, when the first time I heard you put them forward, I'm like, that sounds kind of crazy. But I don't know, man. I feel like we've seen enough crazy events over the past few years that we really shouldn't put anything like beyond our, what do you call that? Whatever, just beyond your normalcy bias.
Yeah, I mean, normalcy bias is for normies and for room temperature IQs. Now, room temperature IQ, I talked about this about 5 shows ago. Room temperature IQs also gravitate toward certainty in terms of, this conspiracy theory is true. So you have this kind of weird parabola curve-shaped thing where, the IQ 101s and 102s are always certain things are going to be boring and the same, or certain that their little pet conspiracy theory is going to be true. Whereas you ask a higher IQ and they're just like, yeah, no, that's totally in the realm of possibility. Look at the long view of history. Look at even, like you said, 2016 was a surprising U.S. presidential election. 2020 was surprising in a blackpilling way. It was faked. And even 2024 had carried with it interesting things like real life assassination attempts that were clearly by the deep state. So what are these normies so sure it will be normal about?
I'm tired of hearing nothing ever happens. Like things happen.
They do. It's that Chinese curse. So we do live in interesting times. The tweet you're talking about by 1 Peter 5.
I have it on the screen right now.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Moments ago, several cardinals seen entering Cardinal Burke's apartment off the Via della Conciliazione. The princes of the church are not yet locked in the Sistine Chapel, but the conclave has definitely begun. I mean, this is a white pill if you take it literally, but it's like you don't say the conclave has begun. They might have just been having a burger cookout, bro. Like, don't say it's definitely begun.
Yeah, but it did kind of begin. I think that's why they gave it that extra time ahead of time, because none of these guys know each other. That's what I mean. I've been like trolling all day about a Dolan papacy.
Yeah,
I did it as a troll because I know it would drive certain people crazy just to see a New York Irishman from, whatever become Pope. But the crazy thing is, if Dolan wasn't from America, he's the ideal candidate for like a middle Pope, like like a whatever, that mediocre Pope that they want that's just going to kind of make peace. The guy, he's not like, he's friendly towards tradition, but he also lets the gay mass happen down at St. Paul's in Southern New York.
Well, he loves the gays.
Yeah, so it's like he did the gay St. Patrick's Day parade thing. They're even talking about him now, how in Rome he's this senior figure who's bringing people together, and he's got all the marketing. Like he's even got the connection to maybe get that Catholic Charities money flowing again, because he's a good politician in America. He's got decent relations with Trump and Vance and stuff. So it's like, if he wasn't American, he would be on everybody's short list to become Pope. But because he's American, everybody's just like, that's never gonna happen.
Which makes me think, thank God he's American. But of course, the way this shakes out is they're going to get some other mediocre center leftist just like him who's not American, or maybe a far leftist. So one thing, I've done this a lot in the last few episodes of this show, ran through papabile, but Ed Penton did a short profiles of 10 papal contenders. Maybe I'll run through that at the end of the show. He also did a 10, and I'm friends with Ed. 10 critical issues facing the next pope. So that one was really, really succinct and worth running through. But I want to have you weigh in a little bit more.
The problem is what Ed Penton thinks of the 10 like things that are facing the church are not anything like what they're talking about at these general whatever they're doing, the congregation things. Like they're none of them are talking about that. They're all talking about the same garbage that we heard under Francis. It's like they're completely clueless as to what's actually facing the church right now. These are guys that were formed during the revolution, so they weren't alive. They weren't priests or ordained during the council yet. They came into their priesthood right after the council. They were formed during the revolution. So they're coming into this and they're thinking that the same issues, like those pet issues they had when they were in their 20s, are the issues facing us today. And I don't know if any of them get how fed up our culture is with their stupid pet issues. Nobody cares about women's ordination anymore. Literally nobody that matters gives a crap about ordaining women at all. Like this.
But you have to understand the LMNOP shit is really, really near and dear to their hearts. I'm not going to say why, but they're super into gays. I mean, these are a bunch of butt philosophers where they say, hey, I'm not saying you can be gay, but they love butts. These are men who love butts. BUTS. So it's a very close issue to their mind, to their hearts, to their, whatever. They're all butt philosophers. So I don't think they care, Anthony, whether or not you and I are sick of hearing about men's butts in secular and church politics. They want to make it okay. And that's, I don't know what percentage of the Cardinals, most of them, I think.
Yeah, I think it's probably close to like 95% of them are like maybe not Catholic, which is crazy. Like we went through 12 years of a pope who hated us. That's what it felt like. I mean, it literally felt like he despised us. He couldn't stand us. So now we're at a point where, do you want an interim pope that's going to kind of, mend the fences for a short period of time until we can get the next guy?
Pretend to tolerate us.
Yeah, but they keep kicking the can down the road, and man, to me, I kind of see this apocalyptically, where it's like this whole thing is so rotten and so bad to its core that if we don't burn the whole thing down, nothing new can come from. Like you have to have a death before there's a resurrection. So I was listening to you and Ryan the other day. Like Ryan sounds like I did back like before the McCarrick scandals. Like he was like hopeful, and it's like that's cool and that's but it's so hard for me to wrap my head around that. Like I need to see the whole thing come down so something new can sprout forth from it.
I mean, he's a pretty shrewd dude. And he and I would be in some of these group chats with a lot of well-known Catholics. I won't say who they are, but just lots of, 30 well-known Catholics. And Ryan was always the closest to me on not pope-splaining at all. Not going for the C word, that's not charitable at all. So Ryan's pretty close. I think he just he described it in one of the two shows he did. He wants to be hopeful, like hope springs eternal. But I think he knows we're not getting a good pope. That's we're not like newsflash, news from Rome that I'm in South Mississippi. You're not getting a good pope.
No, it's going to be bad.
So
what do we do with that? We buckle up. We kind of just prepare for. But the thing is, you're not going to. I don't think, no matter what, you're not going to get another pope that's calling us rigid. You're not like I don't know if the next pope is going to hate us. So I think it'll be a lightening in that area at least, and maybe they'll like loosen the restrictions on Traditionis, where maybe they won't even get rid of it, but it'll be like anybody who requests it from Rome will get their permission. I don't think there'll be this hostile environment that we've dealt with the last 12 years.
No, we agree there. And I think we also agree, like I'm not excited for that, a loosening of it. I want the Novus Ordo gone, like dead. It's I mean, whatever. It's not Fugazi. It's whatever it is. I just don't want anyone to be able to go to the Novus Ordo anywhere. I want all those boomers that are like, Latin, what? I want them all to have to go and learn something new in those thick skulls. So that's
Archbishop,
we're not getting that.
Archbishop Cornelione tweeted something earlier, and he's like
Mm-hmm.
something about like the mutual enrichment of the old, like talking about the way Benedict. And I'm like, are we still playing this game? Like, are we still pretending there's a hermeneutic continuity? I mean, I don't see how Francis kind of threw that whole illusion out the window. So I don't know. Their revolution either has to continue, or we need a full restoration right now. I don't see how we're gonna piece this thing together otherwise.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get on a whole hermeneutic of continuity.
Well, there has to be a hermeneutic of continuity, obviously.
Something they reify and apply later, or else we don't have the one true church. This is what all the most idiotic of the trads will say. Like, there isn't one. Like, someone else, a hermeneutic is an interpretive aid. Mm-hmm. Someone's going to have to come up with that shit later to figure out how church history, their salvation history, moreover, didn't end with either Vatican II or Francis or John Paul II. But no, there's not a plausible one that's been figured out yet. That doesn't mean I think Vatican II is fake. How about this? Cardinal Erdo came out and he said, look, I'm not canvassing for, I don't want to aid the pontifical candidacy of Parolin. Any speculation of a pre-conclave deal between Hungarian Cardinal Erdo and former Vatican Secretary of State Parolin is totally false. Cardinal Erdo has engaged in no such discussions. This is by Edward Habsburg, who's, a friend of the show, good man. I trust him. That Michael Haynes tweeted out. What did you think about the possibility of Erdo stumping for Parolin?
Well, what they were trying to say is that Parolin was the conservative compromise, which is complete and utter insanity.
Insane.
I mean, you kind of covered this already, but I'm pretty sure what he did in China is simony. Like, how are we even going to pretend this guy is the conservative option? It's a complete lie, So, but I think all of the stuff we're seeing in these news reports, like any story you see in the New York Times, the New York Times is deep state propaganda. So it's them trying to influence the conclave in any way they can. They've said straight out, these cardinals have no idea who each other are. The only thing they do know of each other is stuff they're getting from the media. So if you start dropping stories in the Remnant, if you start dropping stories in the New York Times, these are all just little leaks that they let get out as an attempt to influence the cardinals that are going into conclave.
Amen. Yeah, that's what this pre-conclave period is. You mentioned it. And Damian Thompson had tweeted out this bombshell that Tempo reveals that Cardinal Parolin's signature is on the document approving the scandalous London property deal that cost the church 140 million euros. So there is Parolin's signature right on the last document in the Sloane Avenue affair that marked the Betchu case. So to the extent that Betchu got himself in big trouble and isn't even able to vote, even though he's under 80 this time, with the $140 million scandal. Well, Parolin, it's being dropped, has his fingerprints and specifically his signature all over it. They're really trying to get him out of the way. I hope not literally for his own sake. With the thickness now, I'm fine with him not being papabile, but what do you think of that?
Between Betchu and Cardinal Zen coming over and him giving his talk, right? So the difference in this conclave and the last one specifically is that we have our own propaganda to influence these cardinals as well.
Right.
Like this whole right conservative Catholic content, like it was EWTN and National Catholic Register. That was it. And if you look at those guys now, those guys look like they're left almost, the things that I'm reading from National Catholic Register and EWTN, I'm just like, oh, what is going on here? What is even happening?
Arroyo. Not Arroyo. Not
Arroyo.
Arroyo and Penton are the hard pipe hitting guys who nag.
Buddies.
Yeah, they're it. But EWTN are
I just mean their Twitters, like some of the things they're tweeting, it's just like it's so normie and like I'm just like, what world are you guys even living in? Like this is, but yeah, you get into Penton and you get into Raymond Arroyo. It's a very different ball game there.
Yeah, and they've kind of kept their shirts, those two gents, only because they're so popular. But EWTN is no longer Mother Angelica's pet project. She was basically forced out, if people don't know the sad story there. And she was too far right wing for them. And Arroyo was kind of grandfathered in. He was her biographer or whatever. And Catholic Obi-Wan Kenobi, as I call him, Edward Penton, he's managed to just be a classy, like, British man with a beard that everyone loves, even though he is far right wing. So the point is, why do you think they're doing this with Parolin? They're like, I think we're not going to see Parolin because it seems to be the leftists are keeping him out of there.
I don't think he ever had a shot. It's a strange thing. I've never even considered he could be the Pope for a second. Of all the names they're putting out there, I've never even considered for a second that he might actually walk out on the loggia at all. I consider, like, strangely, I think there's a chance Pizza Baller could get in, but I don't know why. I think that's just because people are telling me that.
Everyone's saying that. And, like, people that don't know that much about the cardinalate, who are conservative, say they're excited about this, and I'm like, why? We don't know anything about him, and they don't have an answer. They just want to.
Well, it's
a big conclave. Have you noticed that? All conservatives want to weigh in on it. I'm like, but you don't know shit.
But I think the reason anybody that remained quiet on these big issues under Francis, I think, is going to be a conservative guy. Like, if you're either a leftist and you're all fully on board with synodality and all that crap, or you shut your mouth to keep your head down so you didn't get it chopped off. And because we haven't heard that many statements from Pizza Baller, and he's lived, look, if you're the Patriarch of Jerusalem under Christian persecution in the Holy Land, like, there's something about that faith that is so different from what we experience in the West that I think that's where people are coming from with it. I really don't know anything beyond that about the man, and that he offered himself as a hostage to Hamas or whatever. But, you know, I don't know. I honestly, it's all propaganda, and I guess I'm falling for it as well.
Maybe not. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's different than the well-fed, fat, happy, contented, complacent aristocrats that constitute both the left and the right in the cardinalate and the episcopate. I get it. That was kind of money. That was a Pizza Baller move. But I don't know. I don't trust it. I mistrust everything, and I want to know more before. I'm also an accelerationist. I think, like you, I want basically, unless we can get Cardinal Sarah, or it's not going to be Cardinal Burke, I'd rather have Zuppi, just the gayest one with the feathers on, marching at the Rainbow Parade like Cardinal Zuppi.
Sam, will you explain what accelerationism is for people in
Sure. It just means things are going bad. Let's fast forward to the end. Let's have the worst possible version, shock people with cold water out of their tepid delusions.
Well, Francis was the great clarifier, right? It was like we were all going along with, like, so many things that, like, so like Schönborn, for example, like, we thought he was a conservative cardinal or conservative bishop.
I told people that he wasn't in 2018, but yes, I remember all kinds of conversations in, like, 2016 with conservatives who thought he helped to Ratzinger to draft the CCC. I'm like, yeah, he's not. He's a Francis man. I was telling people before I was on TNT, but everyone thought that. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, it's just all of these guys, their masks dropped. We found out who actually was Catholic and who wasn't, essentially, right? And then we had this really strange period where, like, I always kind of had sympathy for the honest Pope-splainers, that not Pope-splainers like Mike Lewis and the Where Peter Is guys, but the guys who were just coming into the church, just converting, and they were like, well, I'm Catholic, I have to defend the Pope. Like, I saw that as, like, kind of like, noble Catholicism, even if they weren't really believing it. Maybe it was a bit of a meme to say Francis is the most base Pope ever or whatever. So I always thought we could make peace with guys like that and conservatives and trads if we just get a good guy in there.
Probably. I know what you're saying. It's a distinction with a difference. It's not a distinction without a difference to distinguish between Pope-splainers who are just nuts and Pope-splainers who they're like 23 and they just came to the church when they were 22 and they think, oh, being Catholic means you just lie now. You just lie on everyone to cover for an awful Pope, and you call an awful Pope conservative. I don't like that because I don't like liars. I mean, I talk exactly, just a little bit more rough around the edges, but exactly how I talk off the air, how I talk on the air. And I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like people who lie. And so when these doofuses come into the church, I'm glad to have them, but they're like, this is just what it is. You're Catholic. You pretty much do worship the Pope. And it's like, no, you really don't. What of that conversation that you and I were having where, what was it? That was a great aspect of the conversation we had the other day, 2 days ago, about Pope-splainers themselves. What the hell was I going to ask you about that? That was something I really wanted to talk about. I forget what it was. Pope-splaining and all of the new guys in the church. And these new guys really do think we are what Protestants say we are.
Yeah, it's almost like they nitpick. They'll cherry pick one good thing Francis said and make it like his entire papacy was this conservative beam of light or something. And it's like, I don't know, man. I just remember being beaten over the head, constantly being called a backwardist. And it wasn't just towards like people that go to the TLM. It was towards any Catholic who took the faith seriously and believed the faith. For you and Steph and all the Catholics out there that are trying to live without birth control in their lives, having a lot of kids telling you you're breeding like rabbits. It just felt like a constant beating over the head by this man. So when these new Catholics come in and they cherry pick one or two comments that sound good, it's like, dude, come on, man. I've been Catholic since I was born. Like, I'm a cradle Catholic. I lived through the JP2 era, the excitement of all the converts coming into the church. I was a Lighthouse Catholic media guy. Like, don't tell me I know what the excitement is when you first come into the church. You're on fire for the faith and stuff. But this papacy was different. It just was drastically different.
Yeah, so it should be. I mean, I guess this is what I'm waiting to see is if Francis didn't kill Pope-splaining, then what will? Like, how much worse could a Pope be than Pope Francis? And I'm assuming for the sake of argument that he was in fact Pope, because I know that kind of interesting thing isn't probably going to happen, that they actually invalidate.
So if he's not, though, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for the next Pope? Is the next Pope not valid too, or is because it's not like
that's why you got to do the double conclave of AD 11.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is a really big mess that has to get straightened out, though. Like, and I just look at it like, accelerate the mess. If it's not going to be a real restoration, then just speed it up. Like, there can't be a resurrection unless there's a death. And I don't know how you separate this from Benedict's 1969 radio address, where he talks about the church losing all of its privilege in society. He talks about how, if you ever go through that radio address, it's wild. He's like, I have, and he read the Third Secret of Fatima. So I don't know if he had read it at that point, because he was really just Father Ratzinger at that point. But I think he could see the writing on the wall where it's like, the church is going to lose its status in the world. It just is. And it's going to look like our Lord on the path to Calvary. And it says it in the catechism.
The passion of the church. And it is going to seem like it's dead the way the apostles thought Jesus was dead. He said the church will, when it comes back, it'll return as a mustard seed. Very, very, church within a church, very small. And everyone just forgets about that. I think Benedict forgot about that, the latter half of his pontificate.
I don't know. I think Benedict, the things I got from the Mazza conversations you had were that I think Benedict really saw himself as the bishop in white in the Fatima vision. Like, I really think he saw this whole thing apocalyptically. I really think he saw himself as that bishop in white in that vision, and that we were, I think John Paul II did too, man. John Paul II kept talking about the final battle between the church and the world will be over marriage and the family. They were both very apocalyptic popes, the two of them. And it was very odd how Benedict was just silent. Why were they such
wimpy centrists then? Like, I know a lot of people are with me in my audience on JP2. He's a wimpy centrist. Why? Somehow, Benedict was basically just an extension of JP2. Why was he such a wimpy centrist too? They were weirdly apocalyptic, and they both had read Vatican Secret 3B or whatever it was. And Mary did say the final battle of Satan in the world is over marriage and the family. And that's happening now. So does that mean we're in the, I know, but imagine that apocalypsis guy being wimpy guy, but they were.
It's so strange. Like the same guy who's telling us the final battle is going to be over that is there in a CC, but I don't know, man. None of it makes sense. But I don't see how this can continue the way it is. And I think you have to see the fruition of that radio address where it's going to be dude, it is so rotten. I mean, it is so bad on a human level that only divine intervention is going to fix this mess. And I don't see how that happens without just pushing this thing forward. Like I think if you got some kind of a centrist pope in there and you prolong this thing, I don't know. I don't know how you defend Catholicism against Protestantism. I don't know how you defend it against any other faith if it just continues in the state that it's in.
Continues to be an institutional joke. And Catholicism is an the human aspect is an institutional joke and has been since Vatican II, but it really became a laughingstock, laugh riot, gangbuster type joke under Francis. To anyone that's not just lying, like these new converts that the new converts you were talking about didn't even know about Amoris Laetitia because that was 2016, or Family Synod 1, that's 2014, 2 was 2015. They're like, wait, what? So, and that's the biggest problem.
So you think Amoris was far worse than Fiducia, right?
Of course. It's close to being a dogmatic, self-contradiction. Yeah, it's the worst part of that pun. I mean, the grossest is fellatio supplicans, but the most dogmatically self-contradictory is definitely Amoris Laetitia. You are literally contradicting Christ in there, saying Jesus is like, you divorce your wife and marry another. This is mortal sin. You can't go to communion. And Francis is like, yeah, Jesus was wrong. You can.
The craziest part about it is, like, the people that would even apply to didn't care anyway.
I know.
Like the people that would have applied to didn't care anyway, and they were going up and receiving in their third marriage or whatever anyway. It was just such a bizarre thing. It was just meant to undo the moral teaching of the church, and it was just subversive, and it had no other point but to be subversive.
Yeah, I lost friends and family over close friends and family over Amoris Laetitia. I mean, over hewing closely, because like everyone's grandparents, because that was the generations, like divorced and remarried. And if you're like, oh shit, I'm just doing the basic mental math, I can't hang out with grandpa and his second wife. That's an adulterous second union. That's formal cooperation. I can't go to dinner with him. You know, it's like Nick Carraway hanging out with Gatsby and Daisy running around on Tom Buchanan, and Tom with Myrtle running around on Daisy. Like, what kind of person goes and hangs out with someone as they're cheating on their true spouse? So once you realize that, and you hew closely to your morals and the timeless teaching of the church, you lose friends and family because they're like, what? You're more Catholic than the Pope? I'm like, I know it ain't saying much, but I am.
But this wouldn't have been left to the laity. Whatever. We don't have to get into that. But it shouldn't even be up to us. It should just be like Catholic teaching. I had this whole fight with my in-laws recently because I went to dinner with them after my nephew's Lutheran communion, and they were all like, it was like this big thing about why I didn't receive there, and I shouldn't have even been there. And I'm like, they went through this whole thing of all the things they disagreed with the church about. I'm like, you guys, what are you telling me? Like, you want me to not be Catholic? Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm Catholic. Yeah. You're putting the Protestant Reformation before my face right now. There was a time where we would have been in communion, but you guys broke communion. It was this whole thing. But it shouldn't be up to us to have that discussion. It should just be clear that that's what church teaching is.
Yeah, it should be as simple as I'm tapping the sign. I'm Catholic. The Pope is the guy out there that's in the Petrine office. He kind of built the sign. It's a sturdy sign. All I have to do is tap this, mofos. You know, the Pope is like, you can't go to gay weddings. You can't celebrate when gays buy children to molest. You can't go to adulterous second unions. You can't. That's what I want. Everyone knows that's what I want. Everyone knows that's what you want. But that's the job of the Pope. And it's to bring the gospel to the town. And when all the adulterers and homos won't hear you, kick the dust from your sandals and go to the next town. That's the Jesus way. You know, that's how the gospel works. It's a cry of the heart. I want one of those popes so bad, and I know we won't get it. As you pointed out earlier, Anthony, they're the 10 issues that guys like you and I care most about, signaled well by Catholic Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ed Penton, are like not on the lists of any of the papabile. Let me read them from this Penton article.
Did you want me to get that article up for you?
Sure, thanks.
Okay.
Number 1, return to a papacy as a source of sound doctrine and unity. That's exactly WTF you're talking about right there. Like the Pope is the one that's the sign of unity that's holding the line on these issues. Number 2, clarification of Vatican II and reform of the Jesuits. Of course we want that. Number 3, restore traditional papal governance and collegiality to the College of Bishops and Cardinals. Number 4, more reverence in the liturgy. Can you imagine that? By which we mean go back to the TLM, abolish the Novus Ordo. Number 5, end suppression of the traditional liturgy. That's not quite enough, but he has to categorize it separately. Number 6, distance from globalism, secularism, ties to government spending, the kind of investiture / simony we're talking about with the Chinese Communist Party that McCarrick and Parolin ushered in that deal.
Even the American NGOs and stuff, that's what he's like, the government funding of the American NGOs. Like the things we found out about those NGOs was that they are all CIA fronts to overturn foreign governments. It's like the Catholic charity you think you're donating to is literally there to overturn a government so that America could put a friendly dictator in that's going to play ball with us. It's so insane what was going on with this.
It is. You give to Catholics who like the holy relics, and you find out you're waging some color revolution in fucking Eastern Europe. What?
Literally what we were doing for Catholic charities. Everything. Well, you wonder why, like, you always saw the Lepanto Institute reports come out where it was like, oh, they had to put condoms in, and they had to, all this ideological colonization that came with that. It wasn't because the bishops actually cared about that. It's because the American government made them put that in there, because they know it would sow dissent and revolution in that country, because they were trying to put the same revolution that they put in the West in all of these other countries. So, I mean, that's all it was. It was just the sexual revolution through the Catholic Church, though. That's so insane that they participated in that. So
evil. And I think the bishops want it too, but you're absolutely right. And
even back up to the traditional liturgy, though, if you go back and it says like less restrictions on the traditional liturgy, like I really do think you can't just force the traditional liturgy on these boomers and Novus Ordo types. Like you really should just let it flourish, and I do think it will outgrow the Novus Ordo over time. And if the Pope did some like really cool thing, like celebrated a Latin Mass in Rome or something like that alone would be a huge thing, where it doesn't have to be what we would prefer, you know?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. That's true. That's true. Because I mean, boomers would all be having like seizures across the West if they just all went to like a real Catholic Mass. They couldn't handle it.
There would be an immediate schism if we forced the old missile on them. That would be.
That's what I would do if I were. But I mean, thank goodness I'm not. Right. The 7th issue is zero tolerance on clerical sex abuse. Remember, the worst was Pope Francis after promising to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8 is Homo sapienism in the church.
Fun boys.
Often called the pink elephant in the room, the fun boys. The prevailing influence of those who maintain Homo sapienism is normal has been harmful. Remember the first family synod, the extraordinary family synod of October 24th.
Well, think about this. Think about after McCarrick happens, right? They brought all the bishops together in Rome for, what was it, the sex summit?
Yeah.
Remember that sex summit they had? And like they all made these distinctions. Dude, you forget what we lived through for 12 years. Like they brought all the bishops and cardinals into Rome for a sex summit, and they got there and they started making the distinction that, well, you know, if these aren't children and they're adults, then that's a very different situation. Those men should have been in Rome in sackcloth and ash, begging God's mercy for the sins they committed. The whole world would have turned around if we did that. But no, they didn't. They went in and they started justifying all the disgusting crap they did. They made a distinction between minors and adults, and they basically gave carte blanche to the grinder bishops and told them, yeah, as long as they're not kids, go ahead, have fun.
You got a good memory. Not too many people remember that, and that was early 19. That was like
What was
February
the headline
2019.
again?
He has a good memory because very few people remember more of the minute particulars of Francis Pontificate than me, and sometimes it's Anthony. That was February of 2019. They all went to Rome for a sex summit, and it was nuts. Yeah, no pun intended. And they refused to condemn Homo sapienism, and they
they didn't even discuss. Dude, it was so insane because McCarrick didn't even do it to children.
No,
it
I know.
was seminarians and stuff. They were all adults. So what the hell was the whole point of that entire thing? Like that, it's moments like that where it could have been a Nineveh moment where they all just literally donned sackcloth and ash and just begged God's mercy. It would have changed the freaking course of the planet in one day.
Number 9 and 10 are good stewardship of Vatican finances. Like, when's that going to happen with Banco Ambrosiano or whatever it is? And 10 is confront the threat of Islam. I'd like it if it was confront the threat of Islam and Judaism, but whatever. These are great. These are great. This is a great list.
It's a great list. It's just absurd to think that they would even be addressing these. And not only are they not addressing them, the whole idea of Islam and Judaism, man, you think about the Abu Dhabi statements that Francis made, but even if you go back to even with the CC, all of it, I talked to you about this the other day. Like when you go back to John 8, the Pharisees are confronting Jesus and they're telling him they're sons of Abraham. And he's like, if you were sons of Abraham, you would rejoice as Abraham did when he saw me. Meaning the patriarchs and the saints of the Old Testament. If you go back into the Old Testament, you read Jeremiah. Jeremiah is like, the word of the Lord came to me. And like they had theophanies of Christ in the Old Testament. Like the Old Testament saints and patriarchs believed in the Trinity. Maybe not like explicitly the way we would, but they understood that God was a plural, right? So if you look in Genesis, it's like, let us create man in our image. Like this is what the old patriarchs knew. So when Jesus is talking to them and they're like, Abraham is our father, he's like, your father is the devil. Don't like your father is the devil. If you were sons of Abraham, you would rejoice at my coming. So what are the men that are in charge of the church now telling us? They're like, no, we worship the same God as the Muslims and Jews. No, you do. Because you're trying to get us to worship the devil, you sick bastards. That's literally what they're trying to do. They're trying to get us to worship the freaking devil.
Yeah. No, not explicitly
the devil, but like the same dude. When I see the hierarchy in Rome, I see a bunch of godless men. These men do not believe in God. They're wearing the garbs of churchmen and they're pretending they believe in God. They're the freaking Pharisees. Like to a T, they are the Pharisees. They wear this religious garb that they don't believe any of it. They're trying to get us to believe that men can in same-sex relationships can be blessed. Like it's disgusting. So if you're telling me that a pope, like an interim pope is the answer right now, like you people are delusional, man. This whole thing's got to come down.
I forget, where do you come out on sort of related to what you were talking about, the figure of Malachi Martin, the tortured figure of Malachi Martin? I'm a windswept house guy. I do think that shit was real.
Yeah. Oh, I think the windswept house stuff was 100% real. I do think they like enshrined Satan in the Vatican and all that stuff. I mean, about the man himself.
Wait. Then you can't say they're godless. You know, I mean, if you're enshrining Satan in Milwaukee, USA, and the Vatican at the same time to connect some portal or whatever, so this is some Stranger Things shit. Yeah. Then you're not godless. You know, same thing Jay Dyer's always saying about the guys that run the world. They're not incompetent boobs. You know, like normies believe they are. They know there's a higher power. What? That's
a line in our documentary from Dyer. It's hilarious. He does such a good job on that.
Normies are like, oh, these dudes in Washington are they're just secular, incompetent boobs. It's like, no, they know who their father is. Their father is Satan. Yeah. The Pharisees were a den of vipers. Jesus and St. Paul agreed. And most of these bishops are the Pharisees. I'm not saying which ones, but most of them. And they know who the bad guy is and they worship him.
So much of like our modern understanding of Jesus is like the chosen Jesus, you know, like that's not who Jesus was. Jesus, when he dealt with the Pharisees, he was ruthless with them. Like, he took no crap from the Pharisees whatsoever. There was never a time, like, if you ever seen some of the clips from The Chosen where Jesus is like hesitant to talk to the Pharisees, like, he went in there and just destroyed those men. He was like, your father is the devil. Don't tell me that you're sons of Abraham. You are not.
And what were we taught in Catholic school by the liberal women and nuns and like gay men who taught us that he didn't like them because they were too mean or because they were moral rigorous? Nonsense. He didn't like them because they no longer practiced Mosaism. They no longer believed in the Ten Commandments. They practiced Talmudism in at least the oral tradition.
Have you ever seen the Shabbat light on Twitter? No. So like modern Jews aren't allowed to touch light switches on Sabbath. So they invented this light where it's got like a plastic cover on it. And when you turn it, the light shows, and you flip it the other way and the light's got, and it's like, they tricked God. They're so smart. You know, that is what Jesus was on the Pharisees for.
Right.
It's like they were finding ways to technically follow the letter of the law, but there was just like a magic trick. Like that's what he was condemning in them. Like, they were finding these ways to get around what the whole purpose of the law was, because they just wanted to say they were righteous.
Mainly so pervy sex stuff.
Yeah.
But with this is becoming a whole. I mean, we could talk about Philos or whatever, but you're free to share that story anytime you want on this channel.
I'm just saying, when I see the hierarchy today, and I see the things that they're trying to drag us towards, they're trying to drag us towards this worship, the worship of a God who has no. He's like fluid, you know, like he's just, you know, we all worship the same God. All religions are different languages to God. And it's like, I want nothing more than a man in that throne who believes the Catholic faith. I just don't see it happening.
No, me neither.
Not with the crop we're handed.
Well, let's look at what Cardinal Casper said recently. I sort of paraphrased him a little bit ago, but his dense quote is, "I am convinced that we will continue along Bergoglio's line. I've spoken about it with many cardinals." And then he was asked, what about the opposing factions? And I've said this for the last 2 weeks. In the general congregations, they seem to be a small group, of course, because we know all three of them. Yeah. The church cannot allow itself to backtrack, he says. It's me retweeting Rich Reho with his Rich Reho math. And it says, "This has been my unfortunate prediction all along. I always hope I'm wrong, but doubt it. We will see later this week." I'll retweet it right now.
I got it right here.
See, I love reading these guys because that's where you're getting the truth from.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to be told the fake EWTN version of what's happening. I want to know what they're thinking and what they're saying. And if Cardinal Casper is saying that, I mean, this is the sneakiest guy we've seen in the past 50 years in the church. If that's what he's saying, that is their goal, and that's where they're at right now.
He's the guy, for those of you out there who have forgotten, who got divorce and civil remarriage essentially made its lyceity rubber stamped, and he's the one that got communion for the divorce and civil remarriage. Did you know, by the way, Anthony, that he tried this in 1982 under JP2 and was smacked down? There was a whole synod on it. Yeah. People don't even know that. He was told no, and they're like, let's wait for eventually Bergoglio, and he got it done. So he is the sneakiest guy in the church, and he's part of the St. Gallen group. He's one of the faction characters in Windswept House, along with all the other Gallen group guys, along with Klaus effing Schwab.
Yeah.
Did you know Klaus Schwab is in Windswept House?
No.
Yeah, he's one of the characters. Oh
my gosh.
Dude, it's so real. It's real shit, bro.
Yeah, and Casper came out after the Synod on the Family and said, "No, we didn't get it through. It didn't work." And then Francis put it in the footnotes, right? Like that's how sneaky he is. He came out and told everybody, "Let your guard down. Don't worry. You guys didn't get your divorce and remarried for communion thing." And then they snuck it in the footnotes, and we still got it.
He told Arroyo that on World Over. I remember watching that episode. We were swimming at our family friend's house, Joseph and them. And we were like, oh, let's take a swim break and go watch last night's recorded World Over. My buddy Joseph and I would always watch them. They were fire in those days, the papal posse and all that. And we went in there, and it was Cardinal Casper doing this goofy interview where he's like, I think I'm out of favor. I've replayed this interview on my channel a number of times for you guys all. And he's like, yeah, I'm out of favor. I mean, they just do the UTEP two-step, the head fake here, the juke there. They like to break your ankles. And that's what's going on. Like you said, Ant, with all of the center right know-nothings that have been in the church for 3 years. Like, I think we're going to get a really faithful pope.
Yeah.
We're not.
Well, the thing that gives me hope for your like what you sent to Cardinal Burke, the thing that gives me hope for that, something actually, and I don't think they're going to elect a pope behind the scenes or anything, but I do think they may start an investigation simply because these guys lived through the John Paul papacy, then they lived through the Benedict papacy. Now that was 35 years of them trying to institute this hermeneutic of continuity and show people the proper way to interpret the council. So when Bergoglio comes up, not many people understood what was happening. They didn't know what's going on with the St. Gallen Mafia. So they elect him. And what they saw over those 12 years, I think, shocked and horrified a lot of those guys. Yeah. Yep. So I do think they were very naive coming into that conclave, whereas they're not naive like that in this one. So I'm hopeful that even if we don't get our conservative or we don't get our trad in there, maybe that little meeting at Burke's the other day at least started some kind of formal investigation for posterity's sake to say, hey, if there are shenanigans in this one, we might have to look into this deeper. And if they, I mean, these guys, like you made the best point about like Cardinal Burke just being this overweight, comfortable guy. And it's like, man, you promised us a formal correction that never came. Like there's so many things. Even Cardinal Sorrel, like I love the man. I think he's like a very holy man, but like he popped in with the priestly marriage thing, but like he was very quiet during the Francis papacy, watching horrors go on. That I'm hoping to God those men, if we do get a leftist in there, that dude, we need a schism. Like it's there. It just needs to be material at this point. It
needs to be materialized.
Yeah.
Formalized, I guess. Materially there, it needs to be formally. Because these guys are kind of feel like spiritual fathers. I don't want to be too, this is my thing. My trenchant mouth gets me in trouble. They both took demotions. Both of them were prefects of major dicasteries. Cardinal Burke was the prefect of the Apostolic Signature. He was the Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah.
High Court. He took a demotion. Francis was furious at him, nearly had a heart attack at Santa Marta at dinner. He was so mad at him over the dubia. And so did Cardinal Sarah, just took 2 additional years. I think it was 2016. He was the prefect for the Congregation of Divine Worship. They both got absolutely abused. Francis was joking about Cardinal Burke dying.
During COVID. That's right.
Remember, he was on a ventilator. He's making jokes about him. Francis has to be the meanest world leader we saw over the last decade. Again, the know-nothings know nothing of this. He's making jokes about him dying. Just
not just that, like you think about the humiliation of like taking Cardinal Burke out of the Knights of Malta. Like he puts him in the Knights of Malta as like this like token. And he's like, all right, I'm still gonna, I'm not gonna demote you that. And then he takes him out of there. Cardinal Sarah just unceremoniously let go from the Congregation for Divine Worship because he said that priests should face ad orientem. You think about what he did. Anybody that spoke up against this man just destroyed. Like he was.
Remember, I know you do, but like the day after, Cardinal Burke and the 3 other dubia guys were waiting for years, died waiting to hear a resposta to the dubia. The day after, Cardinal Sarah said, "Hey, priests around the world, I'm the head divine worship guy. You ought to just try doing a real mass, consecrating, facing ad orientem posture." The day after, the Vatican said, "No, don't do that. Don't listen to the guy who's in charge of the Congregation for Divine Worship." Do you remember that? Do you know how?
Yes, it was like the most ruthless thing to say to the guy you have heading your divine worship, your Congregation for Divine Worship, comes out, makes a statement, and you contradict him publicly the next day. It was just so awful what he did to so many of the people that we thought were good men just got completely lambasted. And then anytime they spoke up even a tiny bit, the Pope splainers attacked them as if these guys are the problem in the church. It was such like man, you think how rough the past 12 years were, man. I don't know what happens going forward, but I'm like, it was such a relief when Francis passed. Like, I know it's mean to say or whatever, but like, it felt like having a tyrant parent who passed away, and it was like, all right, I can breathe again. You know, I don't know.
I don't think there's any analogy there. He was wiretapping Vatican City. It was a climate of fear. Even center-left cardinals lived under a climate of fear. This was Quotidian. No, it wasn't Quotidian. I forget which center-left Vatican paper said it was a climate of fear, and everyone pretty much acknowledged it. He was called the dictator pope by Henry Sire. He was a dictator pope. That book was just fact upon fact upon fact upon fact that he was absolutely the opposite of the manufactured reputation that he'd garnered. Do we have a super chat?
Yeah, we have a few super chats, but a couple of people were having a problem with openly inviting schism. So I don't know if you guys wanted to address why you feel that way, or
stop. Just stop. Anthony, I mean, you can if you want. You don't have
I don't
to.
even know how we're openly inviting schism. Like, honestly, like, that's another thing.
He's not a sitting pope. He's not openly. It's impossible.
Look, and the thing is, I did the same thing you did during Francis's papacy. I kept my mouth shut. Like, it was like I critiqued a couple of things, but you said something important. It's like the people who are like so confident that their theory, their pet theory, is right. It's like those people. I don't know, man. Like, if you're like a 1958 Sedevacantis, or even like the hardcore Benny Plenis, I'm like, I mean, it's a plausible theory.
Yeah, none of them are too kooky, aside from the fact
it's like it's a plausible theory, but like, how the hell do you prove something like that, you know?
And deal with our thrownness, fella. Like, what I mean by our thrownness is it's a composite institution. Equal, I don't know if it's equal parts, but it's composed of anthropomorphic and deific. The church is human and it is God made. And there are no other institutions like that. But here's the weird historical contingency of it all. If it's Schrodinger's church, if there is more than enough evidence to show Francis was an anti-pope, more than Anacletus II, who was fake elected in 1130. They followed all the canonical laws. They just didn't want a Jew pope, and God bless him. I hear you. But Francis, there's so much more evidence that his election was illegal. It's right in all of our faces. But if the cardinals don't get together and say Schrodinger's church was, or Schrodinger's pope was an anti-pope, then he never will be. And I'd always ask this to Ed and Pat, Mazza and Coffin, like, you understand the Schrodingerianness of this, right? That there's enough evidence, more than enough. But if the cardinals never grow the cojones to reify this, to gather, to marshal all this evidence, and then to reify it into what it really means, what does it require, as we say in constitutional law, then it didn't happen. That's the weirdness of it. And I guess Ed and Pat are both smart guys, so I don't know why they wouldn't. I don't know. I'm curious, because Ed's a really smart guy, Pat's a really smart guy, but the people that were lapping up, their viewers, just a lot of times you try to explain it, they just don't get it, the contingency of it all.
Yeah, it's like, and the people saying, like, I see in the comment, everybody's like, you're talking about schism. We don't want schism. We want clarity. It's like there already is a schism. It's the body of Christ is inside the church, and the body of the devil is the people who are non-believers. But that body of the devil overlaps inside the church, where you have people who they're baptized, they're in the church, they're going through the sacraments, but they don't believe. You got guys like Joe Biden in there. You have people like, these are people who don't actually believe the faith, but they're within the church. That has to be separated out, because their voice is way too powerful right now, and we're trying to coexist, and it doesn't work. Like, that clarity will naturally cause a schism, because more than half the people that go to mass on Sundays don't actually believe the Catholic faith.
Well, we know 80 to 90% of them don't believe in the real presence.
So they're not Catholic by any sense of the word.
Yeah, it just formalizes something that's materially already existent. That's all schism is. Now, they think that because people are not understanding the concept of schism, they think you are saying we need to wage a schism. No, we couldn't. The schism is always it is always expressed by a faithful minority pointing out the ground for the distinction, which is to say the ideological fault line or whatever you will. And the 80 to 90% of guys on the other side of it, they're not part of the church and they haven't been for a long time. Think Council of Nicaea, think all the first 7 councils, really, aside from the 6th council. Think, St. Nicholas, St. Athanasius, saying all of these Arians, 80% of the bishops are the estimates. They're not in the church, and they never really were, or they weren't for very long.
Yeah, they have the buildings, they have all the honors, but they don't have the faith. So it's like, I mean, it just is what it is. It's not, and if you got a real traditional pope in there who actually started speaking like a Catholic, there's going to be a schism. Those people are going to leave. It's not us that's going to leave. I'm never leaving.
Right.
I'm not leaving.
They think it's like, let's wage a 1776 just revolution.
Yeah, they do.
That.
They think it's like the American Revolution.
Yeah.
They do think it's like that. Yeah.
Pope Francis started the schism. I mean, a lot of people say Vatican II, Ronerites, whatever, but Pope Francis really formalized it. That doesn't mean I'm leaving or Anthony's leaving. It just means the fault line's there. Everyone that's on the wrong side of the church's interpretation of the gospel, particularly on these moral theological sex issues, which is really what the St. Gallen group was all about. What Francis was all about, it's about the pelvic issues, as Bishop Barron calls them. If you're on the wrong side of that, you're like, let's call it latae sententiae, schismatic. It just hasn't been formalized yet.
I think Ryan's point about that, the latae sententiae thing, was a really good point, because he's like, I'm so tired of hearing that word, because like in reality, 90% of Catholics are probably latae sententiae, excommunicated, but nothing's ever enforced, so it really doesn't matter. But if those bishops got together and just said, no, we need to enforce these excommunications because they're real. Like the church has these rules on the books, they just need to be enforced. I mean, I'm just praying for crazy time. I want to live through something exciting in church history, man.
That like this week, I was texting.
Well, buckle up.
It's gonna. Steffi, he didn't just say shitty. I want to live through something shitty and mediocre, which is what we're preparing to get. True. I fear, and I think Anthony fears. He said something interesting, and maybe dare I say, inspirational. Like someone really putting their ass on the line.
I'll take the correction. I'll take the correction on that. Do you want to take a super chat real quick?
It's gonna be shitty. I just wanted to say that Richard DeClue, really, really smart dude, who I respect a lot, was texting me about the same thing. Latae sententiae basically doesn't mean anything. Its legal effect is essentially nil. And I said, but bro, you have to think. So think fourth dimensionally, right? His dog is always telling Marty, think longer in the future. Think a double conclave of 1130. One of those guys, Anacletus, whatever his name is, followed canon law, but later, 8 or 9 years later, they're like, we don't want this converso Jew pope. So there was a double conclave. Let's take this guy Innocent II that didn't even follow canon law. We'll back him in, as we say. What you guys have to understand, that you need to understand if you're not a lawyer, you don't have legal training, is if there's any plausible legal theory that can later fit the plotted points to the curve of the line, they'll do that. So that's why it's really important for Burke et al., who I do admire.
Yeah,
I don't want to be making fun of their way. That's why it's important for them to take these steps to whether or not the latae sententiae excommunication needs to be declared before they vote at Conclave 2013 or Conclave 2025. The church will sort that out. If we truly come back to our senses, by we, I mean the sensus fidelium and the bishops, then they will back that in. They're like, as long as Burke and his homeboys got together and said, yeah, 2013 was fake, it doesn't matter if you bend a few canon law rules. Canon law is nothing. It's the divine law and actually the natural law that matters. We can't have a pope that's bending the principle of non-contradiction as Francis did. And look, Austin Ivory told us he basically invalidated himself. So it doesn't matter whether or not.
I think him responding to you.
Let me find that.
Yeah,
so much. If it really was just some, it was an error. Like him publicly responding to you gave the hand away.
I think so too. I didn't even tag him, did I? I don't think I tagged him.
No, I don't think you did. You did that show talking about, for context, about the his book, how we were talking about the St. Gallen Mafia, all of that. And then later that day, he just randomly tweeted at you. Let me see if I can find that and put that on the screen for everybody.
Yeah, because I mean, people are talking about this. Like, it's not like the thing you sent to Cardinal Burke. It's not like you're the only one talking about this. I'm seeing other shows bringing it up, and they are talking about it in Rome. Like, there are people. 100%. I've heard a few shows that I'm listening to, and they're talking about the St. Gallen Mafia and the influence that they had on getting Francis in, and it's like. It's not some pet theory that you have. Like, there's something to this.
Yeah, I feel like people treat it like Benedictinism. I think that's why Benedictinism was really negative, because it was guys that were saying they're positive, they're right. And, it just was like this fringe kind of, not quite sedevacantism out of 1958, but guys that are just like, no, it is. And I'm declaring it. And now I'm going to my own church and I have my own Pope Steve or whatever it is. Yeah. And it gets kooky. I never did that. I'm like, I don't call him Bergoglio. I call him Pope Francis, because I know the cowardly canker on the heart of most of even the good guys is probably going to dictate that he ends up being 266 Pope Francis because of Schrodinger's Pope, because that's how it works. But they have a hell of a lot of evidence to get rid of the Francis pontificate in the annuario later if they want to.
It looks like he did. It looks like he responded to your thread on Twitter where you're talking about, was Pope Francis's election legal? And then you had all the evidence. And below that, you're talking about his damage control tweet that he did.
But did I tag him?
He didn't tag him. He didn't at him. He just said his name.
Yeah.
What, does he follow me?
And then he wrote you, and he said, actually, it wasn't damage control, but the result of me misunderstanding something Cardinal Murphy O'Connor told me. I apologized and corrected, and then you responded. You said, what did you say here? You said, here's the problem. No one believes your BS story.
Yeah.
Boom, roasted.
Yeah. The fact that he even responded, some people I think have there might be a way to like get alerted when your name gets said, even if it's not added, I guess, or because I know a few people that if you just say their name without adding them, they'll respond to it. So I don't know if there's a way to do that, but
yeah, maybe there is. I don't know. I don't care enough, but
yeah.
Will you take a super chat?
Yeah, sorry, we keep forgetting.
So Cars in Catholicism says, Tim, what are your thoughts about the news that there was a group of cardinals that got together in Burke's apartment over the weekend?
I mean, it would be dope if it would be super dope if that meant anything. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but the normalcy bias that plagues us all has me thinking they're probably just getting together to have pizza and be like, well, so we're going to get another JP2 sort of center leftist build as a center rightist, and buckle up, boys. But I don't know. Burke's also a really holy guy. Maybe he's going to surprise us all. Did you want to say anything additional to that, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been one thing if they said who the Cardinals were, if like we knew it was all conservative Cardinals getting together, like if it was Syrah and it was like all these specific guys, and we could be like, okay, maybe something's happening there. But like you said, they could have just been getting together to pray. Like,
yeah,
we don't know what it is.
I don't think do you think anyone hangs out with Burke aside from Sarah?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what the dynamic is between them. Here's the thing. The one thing that is kind of wild is that this College of Cardinals is so drastically different from the last one, meaning the last one was like 58 or 59% European, and this one's only 42% European. Like, it's way more Asian and African, this one. So like the dynamics could be totally freaking different. There was one thing I sent you about them not even knowing each other that what text? I gotta look to our text. I sent it to you this morning.
Yeah, I saw that. Francis really didn't want them getting to know each other. Way more. Yeah, so many more Hello Kitty backpacks at this thing.
The Cardinals don't know each other so well, said Cardinal Aborel or whatever of Sweden, who has spent recent days in a crowded Vatican lecture hall listening to the concerns and learning the names of the record number of cardinals Pope Francis appointed who will choose his successor. Cardinal Borealis, I don't know how to say his name, sat in a section reserved for a small group of newcomers from countries that never had cardinals before. They included one from Mali, who he said had disappeared after the first day, and from Laos, who many days into the meetings hasn't turned up since. He himself said he felt lost all the time. It's like these guys are like, like this guy's coming and they're like, they just leave. They're like, I don't even know what's going on over here. What's happening?
Because they're like, Can you imagine you're from Laos? You just pull into Rome and you're like, these guys are like faggot. You know?
Like running
These guys.
out.
I mean, can you imagine? They're just like, dude, I was just coming to Rome to take part in a conclave, eat some lychees, get a boba, whatever. I'm just playing on my calculator, and they're finding out like half of these cardinals are all, you know, crushing on whatever American Idol male singer, and they're like, what? So they're
going in and they're listening to these talks they're like essentially the synod talks, and it's like, we need to worry about immigration and we need to care for the poor, and it's like they're just platitudes, man. Like, they're just platitudes. Like, that's all you hear from these people is just these empty freaking platitudes that don't mean anything. It's like, dude, I live in New York. I work a construction job. 80% of the guys I work with are from South America, and they're here like, you know, on some shady business. They came across the border crazily. It's like, I care for those guys. I treat them like human beings. I don't hate the poor. I just care about my country, and I don't want it to be completely overtaken by foreigners who have a totally different culture than mine. Like, it's like,
it's good of you to treat them as if they're human beings.
Well, if you listen to Cardinal Sarah, though, Sarah's like,
as if, you know,
if Europe doesn't remember its identity, like its origin story, right? Like, if you don't remember that the Christian, like, you can't separate Catholicism from Europe. The history of Europe was formed by the Catholic Church, and these people have just totally forgotten their whole origin story, and they're replacing it with these foreigners who don't give a crap about them. And that's the bigger problem right now. It's not that we hate people from other lands. It's that we're going to completely lose all of Christendom.
Maybe you don't. Speak for yourself. I hate people from other lands, but you're from another land. I hate you. No, look, because people say I hate loosely all the time, where they're like, oh man, I hate lychee. I'm like, I hate people that eat lychee. I'm just messing around, but not really.
Just joshing, but not. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Can you imagine the Africans saved the 2014 conclave, you know, from all the Homo sapien stuff. And I just think of that, you know, the greatest video ever on YouTube. Why are you gay?
Why are you gay?
That's Cardinal Sarah and Ubungo and all those guys. I
but
think
that has to be a decent sized voting block, right? Like, the African cardinals have to be a decent sized voting block.
What is it, 18 or 16? Ryan said what it was. I think it is decent sized. Yeah.
So look, it may not be 2/3, right? But is it more than a third? Are the conservatives more than a third so that they can go in and lock this thing up and not let it advance? Because that's a huge thing, right? Like, we're all used to these 2-3 day conclaves, but all of a sudden you start getting an 8-9 day conclave and people start freaking out.
That would be filibuster. Yeah, I want Cardinal Burke like.
And to put their freaking foot down, like, no, we're not budging on this.
Yeah, no, that would be. But after who changed it? Paul VI, John, might have been the conclave that gave us JP1, which is weird because we never cite anything from that aside from the fact that he was assassinated.
I have Why Are You Gay, by the way.
Oh, you have Why Are You Gay? But they changed it where it's a bare majority.
You ugly. No, look. You gotta look up Benedict, because Benedict changed it back, I think. So, like, there was talk of Francis changing it again to say, like, after 33 scrutinies, if there's nobody elected, that goes to a simple majority. I don't think he ever wound up doing that. I think Benedict kept it. It's got to be 2/3.
Did he? I could have sworn it was one of the
I might be wrong.
60s or 70s conclaves. They changed it to a bare majority. No, it should always be super majority needed, or else they just stay in there and they're gonna have to keep sleeping at Castel San Angelo. I'm sure it's like super comfortable. It's actually badass in there. But
did you see the movie Conclave?
No, I was gonna watch it. Maybe we should watch it tonight. Did you?
Dude, it's interesting because I'm going to catch crap for this, but I thought it was up until the last 5 minutes, it was a good movie.
Was there sort of Transformers stuff?
It wasn't a transfer. It was like an intersex. It was a person born as a guy, and he thought he was a guy his whole life. He was ordained a priest, and then had stomach issues, and he found out he had fallopian tubes or something, you know.
Curtis.
The classic tale.
Yeah. Like
boy
so,
meets girl, girl falls in love with boy, boy finds out he was girl. It's so
you could just stop it before the last 5 minutes. What it does kind of do is give you an interesting perspective on the different groups politicking inside the Vatican, you know. And they are so bad, Hollywood. They try to make a villain, so they take this trad cardinal,
Jude Law. Yeah.
No, not Jude Law. It's the guy. It's Sergio Castelletti. He played Padre Pio in Miracle Man. So,
Okay.
all right, like Jude Law in the Young Pope, right? Or like same thing. They try to make him a bad guy and a villain, and instead he just comes off sounding perfectly sensible, and you're like, yeah, this is exactly what I want.
This guy's amazing. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Why are you gay though?
Why are you gay? Why are you gay?
You are gay.
Super chat here as well. We're going through an eclipse. This is from Raquel. We're going through an eclipse, total darkness through this last papacy, and the next pope may be liberal, but then start moving the church to the right through divine intervention, and his conclave will be light and canonical.
I hope so, Raquel. I certainly hope so. I don't know. I feel like people, once I figured out the pattern recognition being what it is, I figured out how Francis made his movements. I could predict it reasonably reliably, and so people would ask me. But when it's like a change time, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty bad. But by pretty bad, I do agree with Anthony. I think it's going to be kind of more crypto again. I don't think they're going to put Francis out there.
But you know what the difference in this papacy is going to be from the last? When Francis gets elected, you had a 3-year period where pretty much all of us were pope-splaining. Like all Catholics were like, "Oh no, he didn't really mean this. He really meant this. Oh, you guys are taking what he said out of." It wasn't until McCarrick. No, it was Memorial Laetitia. It was the Synod on the Family.
Bullshit. No, I was from day one. I was like,
I wasn't that.
I don't like that he's from South America. He's from another lands. I remember first summer he was Pope, sitting there trying all of the outlets, because I was publishing some, to talk shit on Laudato Si. That one's not even that bad. And I was just like, Laudato Si is environmentalist garbage. And no one would take it. And I was off to the races.
You were writing for like 1 Peter 5 back then and stuff, right?
Yeah, I did like a Mike Ditka interview for 1 Peter 5. That was kind of
funny. He was so grumpy.
He was really grumpy.
He was really mean.
So I wasn't even, but there was this weird period where like Catholics were like kind of trying to make sense of stuff. And like, there were some of you who were pointing this stuff out early on, but it wasn't until McCarrick where there was like a groundswell of, all right, this is nonsense. Like the first time I heard anybody publicly talking about it was you, Taylor, and Pat Coffin talking together. And the episode was Red Pilled on Francis. And it was right after McCarrick. And I was like, thank God there's other people talking about what I'm seeing here. Like it was like such a good feeling to hear other people saying out loud what I was thinking. Yeah. You won't get that this time. If you get a freaking guy out there that is on that, you're going to get it from the day one. Like, I think you're going to have a group of conservative Catholics who are like, we're not going to give this guy peaceful acceptance.
No. Yeah. I hope that's right. And I do think that's right. That's
from the get-go. It's going to be, no, he's not getting peaceful acceptance. We're not going to let this guy have the papacy. Like, it's going to get crazy, man. I think.
I hope. I mean, me and you want the same things, and you have good memory, but no, of that triumvirate of dudes, me, Pat, and Taylor. Taylor was the one that took till McCarrick to he openly admits this to get red pilled. Me and Pat were openly anti-Francis from like the first time he came out on the loggia, before I even knew that Cardinal Gottfried Daniels was such a creep. I was just like, I don't like this. And then the reproduced like rabbits and the abortion and the who am I to judge followed in the first few months. And I was like, I don't like this guy. So, and he's a Jesuit, and he's not actually South American. He's Italian. But he's from South America. That's bad enough.
Yeah.
It's bad enough. Not in my backyard.
Yeah, see, I wasn't even clued into that stuff back then. And what happened is when Amoris Laetitia came out, I was like so demoralized that I stopped going to mass for 2 years or a year or something. Dude, I was so demoralized.
Really?
And it was, dude, you have no idea. Your show, that show, Red Pill on Francis, brought me back to the church.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know you'd ever.
Not even kidding. I was away from the sacraments for like a year and a half. I was just so disgusted with everything I was seeing, and nobody was talking about it. And then I finally stumbled across that video, and I was like, oh, I'm not freaking crying. Like, I thought it was nuts, dude. I was watching all the freaking Catholic Answers guys and everybody saying everything was great. And, you know, you're just misunderstanding. I'm like, I'm not misunderstanding him. I know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Catholic Answers guys were just straight up lying. I mean, Pachamama, they were straight up like the Vatican came out and corrected basically for Jimmy Akin specifically. He's like, you know, Pachamama is actually, you guys didn't know this, actually what they call in the Andalusian Mountains, they call the Virgin Mother. And they're like, no, it's a demon goddess. We're worshiping her.
Yeah. And Francis called her Pachamama.
Worship a demon goddess. Trim your beard, man.
Francis, they're like, no, it's the Blessed Mother. Francis is like, no, it's Pachamama.
That shit is orange and way too long, Jimmy. It is a demon goddess. Stop lying. From, who was it? Greg Burke at the time? And it was... who was it? It was Patrick Madrid and what's the other guy that used to do a show?
Oh, the one that you called in?
Yeah, I called in and they were Pope-splaining when in Feb of 2016. So because I can go dates in Francis. April 2016 is when Amoris comes out. We're just waiting for 6 months from the end of the ordinary family synod, which was October of 2015. There's just nothing in between. But remember Zika virus? Mm-hmm. In that whole waiting period, Feb of 2016.
He gave his condom comments.
He gave the condom comment. And he literally says, because of Zika virus, you can use your Jimmy hats. And then everyone was like, wait, what? Yeah. So it's Chris Albert, who's a nice guy, and his son's a really cool dude. But Chris Albert and Patrick Madrid were doing like the Pope-splaining two-step, and I was literally going to get like anti-seizural medication for Abbate and CVS, and I was like, this is BS. And as I was driving, they were lying, saying, no, Frank, this is the liberal media taking him out of context. And right then I was looking at my phone and it says, Greg Burke comes out, the Vatican spokeshole, and says, yes, Francis meant artificial contraception. Specifically, he means like Jimmy hats. You can use condoms. And they're still going on. They hadn't seen it. And I call him. And I'm like, dude, I'm at the pharmacy, like making sure my kid doesn't have her 40th seizure. Yeah, I'm at a Wendy's restaurant right now. And you're lying. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, just check this out. I had one of their texts at the time. I was like, deal with this. And then I had to get off. And then I went back out to my car. And they were freaking out because it was like contradicting it was totally giving the lie to everything they'd said. And they're like, okay, what do we do? Okay, so you shouldn't follow the Pope. And I was like, holy shit, it's happening. Do you
remember the Benedict condom controversy?
No.
Yeah,
Okay,
I saw that right now. I was looking it up. Yeah.
Benedict had a controversy with condoms too, where he was talking to somebody about like morality in general. And Benedict came, because I was like a huge Benedict guy.
Yeah.
And Benedict said wearing a condom could be a person's first step towards morality, because if the guy had AIDS, he was talking about, like in that context, like if a guy has AIDS and he puts a condom on, like that could be his first inkling towards a moral life, and like that could like eventually lead to a convert. He wasn't giving permission for condoms at all. So these guys went and defended Benedict in that context, and they just assumed this was one of those things and that the media was twisting it out of control, but it was completely different. Like
it was an analogy without proper analogies. Correct. And they were also likening it to nuns in the Congolese nuns under Paul VI, who he was saying you're allowed to just, in the action theory involved here by the Aristotelianism is just crystal clear. This is what I'm working on a PhD in. They're saying the Congolese nuns who were given like condoms or female condoms or something because so many nuns were getting raped. They never intended to use those. So like forum intent specifies form. They never intend to use them. That's literally just like a shield against getting AIDS by some black African guy who's raping you. Like that's different. So there, I remember
but it's always situational ethics that they use to do, like it's situational ethics that they use to try to poke holes in your in your theology and in your moral framework. It's always how they've worked.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the situation ethics. Born at the Greg, where I have a degree, was literally situation ethics. Did we have another super chat?
We had a few comments. We had JD said Tony is one spicy meatball. And Lauren said Malachi.
No homo, right?
No homo. Well, here, how about we do this one? Here we go.
Good morning. Morning. Why are you gay?
JD.
You are gay.
You are gay.
Yep. Okay, there we go. And then Lauren says, Malachi Martin said this about the Fatima Pope: the successor of Peter during those dire days will finally be converted and will restore the church.
Yeah. And he was always saying on Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM, he was always saying, keep your eyes on the skies. And I still don't know what that means. Do you have any clue what that means?
Well, there's two things about that. The eyes in the skies. The one is that I saw a column, whatever his name is, from EWTN tweeting out the thunderstorm from last night, and I'm like, all right, guys, it's a thunderstorm. Settle down, like because Rome had a heavy thunderstorm last night. But the other is like we haven't seen Fatima happen. And it's like you see all these guys gathered in Rome, man, and you wonder, man. You see, like in India, they're talking about a nuclear war. You wonder if something's going to happen one day.
Yeah, no comment.
Yeah, because you don't wish that upon them. But,
Anthony's comment submitted without my comment, but yeah,
Colin Flynn, yeah.
There's the thunderstorm.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes thunderstorms happen, guys. You don't have to, freak out over a thunderstorm. But it is, it is interesting. The last day of the novena for Francis's death, and God sent some signs in the skies.
What does Thranduil say about Gandalf? He's like, sometimes storm and wind
is just a storm.
It's a good line. Yeah, we are Lord of the Ring dorks.
Like coming in breaking hard and alarm.
We're not LARPy dorks in the Gordon household, but Lord of the Rings is the closest we get.
Like everything in our house is named after Lord of the Rings. We had 2 dogs named after. We had Barlaman and Brago. One of our daughters' name is Pippin.
See, we named our pets after like Willow and
that wimpy deer. I never even saw Willow. I just remember he was all over my Taco Bell cup in like 1991, bro.
Wait, do you remember the Land Before Time stuff from Pizza Hut?
Oh, that was the shiz.
The Land Before Time stuff from Pizza Hut. When we were kids, dude.
No. Dare I say the artwork of one Don Bluth? That man was a maestro of finer arts.
Mice. That guy was the Renaissance man of mice art.
Of anthropomorphic mice with great wisdom that I was getting from like no white-faced elders, like Nicodemus in Secret of Nim. We're talking the Great Mouse Detective, Sherlock.
Oh my goodness, there he is with his mice. Like many of his mice characters. We're talking Secret of Nim, American Tail, all dogs.
American Tail.
No, American Tail is Zog. That's Steven Spielberg. And it's all about Jewish mice. Like being
you don't put that together until
get that out of here. Bite your tongue.
You don't get that until later on, though. But like we were being propagandized as kids with Feifel. He was a Jewish mouse escaping like the Holocaust. Dude, you don't even think about this stuff when you're a kid.
Yeah. I know, but I knew I didn't like it. I was like, bro, I just came off of The Rescuers.
Amazing.
Rescuers Down Under, Don Bluth also.
Incredible.
Great Mouse Detective, one of my favorite all-time Disney films. And then one of my all-time favorite films, bar none, Secret of Nim, with like Nicodemus the Rat is like a grandfather I never had. He was a proto Splinter for me, and Splinter is my sensei dog.
Yeah. So. Ninja Turtles was huge.
That movie blew my mind. But yeah, and then you got like Feifel Goes West and stuff. And I was like, hey man, I like the New Testament, bro.
Look at these guys, man.
Get out of here,
incredible.
Sorry,
incredible.
The Gen X millennial reminiscing, guys. Sorry about that.
You're within a year of my age, ain't you?
I'm Steph's age.
Your Steph's age.
Me and Steph were the class of 2000.
Right. I'm class of 99.
Yeah.
I was like,
Where were we?
I was born.
Talking about Jewish mice propaganda.
What did we go through all the stories?
I was looking while you guys were live on air. Did you guys hear that the 2 African cardinals were
readmitted.
Readmitted, yeah.
Dude, that is actually a hilarious story. These guys don't know how old they are. They know they lived through 74 winters or 75 winters, but they were born in the summer. Like you talk about. Do these guys click for their language?
The show is.
Was that what happened? They didn't know how old they were?
Yes, they knew they were alive for 75 winters, but they were born in the summer. So it's like they made the cutoff by like 4 months or something. They don't know their actual age.
Do we know either of their? Do they know their names?
I'm gonna look and see.
Do they have?
I saw that story. I almost died. They readmitted 2 to be allowed to vote because they figured out they weren't young enough.
Technological invention. The birthday. Hadn't reached that part of Africa.
Records. I guess they just have no records department there.
No.
Just to look into the matter.
But these guys, they're the ones giving us real shit because they're like the guys in the Matt Walsh movie where he goes and he's like, "Do you guys have transgender?" They're like, "What?
What the hell is that?"
What are you talking about, bro?
They're just laughing.
We're trying to kill a zebra or whatever for a meal.
Like the famous video where they have a reporter asking like Muslim guys if they want like a woman to be
educated,
and they're like laughing hysterically. Oh boy.
Random question. Anthony, did you get much blowback when Steph and I came on and we did the froze?
I get
because you don't usually get blowback.
I get passive aggressive texts and DMs is what I get.
From like related parties or fans?
Yeah, no, from people that don't like the direction my show is heading in.
Yes.
Get in line.
Starting with one. Yeah, get in line.
I'll get passive aggressive texts like basically like, "Hey, nice show you got there. We're watching it. You better, you better knock it off,
They just all stop. I remember that like 6 years ago when the most dangerous thing Taylor and I did on TNT was talk about the Pope, but then it's just, boy, yeah, we're so
funny when that happens, when people complain. I'm just like, I'll direct this email to our boss and just like Tim's email address.
Well, we talked about this on my show. Like, there's a freedom in accepting that you're never going to be part of the conversation with those guys, and you're just like, okay, I'm going to talk about what the hell I want to. I don't have any major donors telling me what to talk about, and those guys won't accept me in their end of the conversation. So once you because at first I remember me and you used to talk about this, it was very tempting to try and get on bigger shows like that, and you were like, dude, you're just too agreeable. Like you can't just be so nice all the time, and it's like the temptation is there to get your channel bigger and to be friendly with everybody. But the more you do this, the more you realize you can't be friends with everybody. It just doesn't work. You're going to give your opinions, and your opinions are verboten, and they're not going to allow you in the conversation. They're going to gatekeep it. And then once you realize that, though, you actually can just be free to say whatever the hell you want. And your audience and my audience will never be huge. You'll never be a mainstream guy. It's just not going to happen. You're saying things that are just too crazy, No,
it's true. And I remember telling you that when you launched, and I was trying to boost your show as much as I can. But I will say this. I do have some generous donors, but I'm always like, wait, let me give you a sample of what's coming next week or the month after that, because I don't want to be a captive creator. I'm going to go more misogynist, more sexist, more racist, more. So just please, I'm happy. Thank God for generous donors, and those of you out there know who you are. But it's just I have no walls. And thank you. And the donors are always like, yeah, that's why we watch you, bro.
Well, you wouldn't accept money from, and never have, from anyone who's like, you have to say this or don't say that.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry. I don't need the money. I like money, but I don't need the money. And so, yeah, I appreciate donors in good faith who are like, man, I just want you to keep doing you. And I'm like,
but that's different from you know, like a mainstream source that is trying to control the conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's more what, like, you know, if you saw after Francis passed, in unison, a lot of the mainstream guys just came right out and they were trying to glaze over the Francis papacy, but it was like all at once, and I was like, whoa, like I've talked to you guys behind the scenes, man. You guys were not talking like that before, you know. And now all of a sudden everybody's just like, okay, let's just pretend the past 12 years were okay and everything's fine. And I don't know. It's just a very coordinated messaging came out at that time.
I know I did probably my most deferent show ever, like the day after he died or the day he died, just because I guess I'm mildly afraid of ghosts or whatever. but I'm like, okay, after I'm doing that for one day, and then just like, you know, he ain't gonna haunt me. Right?
Well, let me ask you this: if we can talk about Alexander VI being the worst pope of all time, like how much time needs to go by before you can talk about? Like, I don't get it. First of all, I think Alexander VI was a good pope.
Yeah,
you know, I think he had a few concubines, and you know, he had some kids. It's the 1400s. Everybody had freaking bastards running around at that time.
It's like a snafu. He liked the ladies. Come on.
We have a long tradition of, you know, what is it? It's like fornicator I was, but heretic I never was. Like that's a solid tradition in the Catholic Church. You know, it's like
with women, a fornicator with women, but non-heretic. And he, like, you know, didn't like the Muslims and the Jews. Like I
gave us the Angelus. I mean, I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure Alexander VI gave us the Angelus. He
didn't?
I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% on that. You got to double check that, but he did. He was a master statesman. His reputation was ruined by Julius II, who was his successor. It was like the Della Roveres hated the Borgias, so much of the propaganda that came out was because of the Della Rovere. Like, I love that period in church history. When I went to Rome, our tour guide is taking us through the Vatican, and I'm the only one that knew that Julius II was Della Rovere. Our tour guide was like, this is the first time I've ever had anybody know that's who that was. I just love that period in church history. It's like, that's the other thing. Like, okay, so we're talking about like Burke and all those guys, and will they make a stand? Like back in the times in the 1100s when Anacletus happens, the guys that go and vote in that other candidate, like these are men from noble families. Right. You understand? Like there's a big difference. These guys are noble families. Back then you have the Medicis, you have the freaking there's so many like noble families that were controlling the papacy at this time, and they cared very much about their legacies and stuff. Like the men that we have now, I don't know if they have the fortitude to stand up for it, because there is something to nobility and
of course
like that,
democracy, real blue blood. Then it's much easier to hold the ideological line when you're coming from a family that's got a crest. You know, where the crest stands for something. I was even kind of getting into my own Scottish history, but
you got a really cool one. Like you're a Scottish for Gordon. It's just like by courage, not craft, is the motto.
Which is kind of the motto of this show. By courage, not craft.
And it's like, Gordon. Let me show Gordon.
But to make Anthony's point while you're doing that, or to flesh it a bit, it is really important how to express once how based it was to have those medieval families that were like, we're not letting anyone get away with anything. We don't want that Jew Pope Anacletus II. You know, we don't want the Converso Pope. And
this is the
you go back to the time of Dante. Like Dante is writing about his beloved Florence that is at war because these families are just at war with each other and stuff. But it's all these noble families at war with each other. We just have nothing like that in our current world. Like even me, I know up to my dad's grandfather, and before that, like my great grandfather comes on the boat from Italy to Ellis Island. I don't know any of my family history from Italy. So the church, like the saints, are my inheritance. Like they are my church, my family history, essentially. You know, that's why I always loved the saints. It was ways for me to find some kind of a lineage beyond my great grandfather.
Yeah, that's base. I didn't know you ever had a period you stopped going to church. I just see that video up. Well, okay, so I think that's all the news coming out. But but is the official view on today's episode that I wouldn't get my hopes up too much for the non-aristocrat non-family backed individual good conservative cardinals hanging out with Cardinal Burke. Probably not a conclave, a pre-conclave. I hope it is, but I don't think that's what it is. What do you think?
I think that, look, none of us actually know what's going to happen, and it is fun to do this speculation stuff. I mean, I do have a slight hope, but like I said, it's not looking good. Like it's a very grim outlook, and what's going to be interesting to me is to see how we progress, like us, like the non-pope splainers, how we handle this next papacy when it gets going forward. Like I see a lot of guys who were very vocal during Francis not saying anything during this interregnum, because I feel like there's a lot of guys waiting to see if they like the guy that's elected before they make their stance known.
Who do you think's doing that? Because I haven't been paying that much attention. Like
I don't want to say names.
Come on.
They're friendlies, and I want to just I think a lot of people are waiting to see who gets elected before they make the decision. Are they going to accept it? Like I'm very agnostic about this stuff, and I'm kind of just like I trust that all the stuff that's going on, God, it's part of the story, part of salvation history, and it's part of the story. God knows what's going on, and He hasn't abandoned His church. Like I truly believe God hasn't abandoned His church. I'm not going anywhere. So we'll see what happens.
Some would even say God is at the center of salvation history.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony. Well, thanks. Everyone, go check out Avoiding Babylon. And what days are you doing shows this week? I'm probably going to do a show every day aside from tomorrow, I think.
We're doing, so I was going to do one tonight, but I came on with you instead. I'm going to do one tomorrow. I got Michael Hitchborn coming on. Then Wednesday, if you want to pop on with us, if we don't get white smoke, like if we get black smoke on Wednesday and you want to pop on, and we'll just talk about whatever the hell's in the news on Wednesday. If you get white smoke, you got to do your thing and I got to do my thing. But
yeah, I'm going to do a show. I think I'm going to have George Farmer man on the street for me, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, but I'll come on. But
yeah, we'll touch base. We'll see if you're busy, if not, whatever. So we're going to do Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we're playing it by ear. And then it's like, we're expecting news to be dropping every day at that point, because either you're going to have a pope or you're not. And the rumor mill is just going to be crazy at that point. So
it's going to be exciting to see who walks onto that balcony. I mean, that's going to be, man.
I'm not going to lie.
It's the most exciting time to be Catholic is during a conclave, right? It's like,
and especially this one. Yeah. I mean, with all the waste that's been laying to Protestantism, just because the internet, truth outs better on the internet than anywhere else. So people like Protestantism is retarded. And so all these people, record numbers of conversions this Easter, and it's just been coming way back into the pop culture. And I think patriarchy has something to do with that too, because that's been coming back. And so now everyone wants to know what's going to go on at this conclave, and people are sick of the lack of formality. So formalism is coming back too, even just in terms of ritual and stuff. So the pomp and the grandeur really does kind of make me wish I'm over there. I just hate being away from Steph and the kids.
There's something about being Catholic that when you see these grand ceremonies, we are the envy of the world. Like we just are. Everybody wishes they had some beautiful, amazing ritual that's been going on for 2,000 years. Like there's nothing like the Catholic faith. No, not even close. Like even the Orthodox are like, oh, when are you guys going to admit that the gates of... It's like, dude, shut up. Your interest in who is becoming Pope is just like, they are just as interested in it as we are, because they know too, the whole world looks to the Pope of Rome. And if we get a bad Pope, it affects them too. If we get a good Pope, it affects them too, because the Roman See is the most important thing in human history. Like, it's just nothing that even compares to it.
Nothing compares. I mean, they have their excellent and luxuriant beards to fluff. Being Eastern European, we don't have that, but we don't have the beards, the regiment of the beard, but we have the Pope. So deal with it, guys. All right. Well, we'll it's going to be an exciting week, and for better or for worse, probably worse, but it's going to be fun no matter what. So.
Yeah, me and you'll be behind the scenes and stuff, and we'll have plenty of things to say. So Tim, thank you so much for having me on, man, and thank you for always, like, even from the first time I reached out to you, bringing me on, man. You've always been a good friend. Yeah, you too. I mean, you're a good talker, so it's fun to have you on. Anyway, I'll talk to you later in the week, probably on your show, and then good luck with your coverage, and we'll be texting a lot as ever. God bless you all. Yeah, peace. Des Volt. Baseball.